Victories for the gay rights movement. The Supreme Court ruled that married same-sex couples are entitled to federal benefits, and they declined to decide a case from California, which effectively allows same-sex marriages there. And now that still leaves in place some laws that ban same-sex marriage around the nation, and the court declined to say whether there was a constitutional right to same-sex marriage. But I think we've got it. I think it's nice and slick.
We're good.
You can put anything anywhere you want to put it, right?
There you go, baby.
All right. On the phone with us to maybe give us a little analysis of this ruling, Gregory Cedana. He's an executive director of the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance, first openly gay person to actually serve in that post. I'm sure he's very excited about this. He writes for the Huffington Post about marriage equality as well as other issues. Gregory, good morning. Welcome. This is the ruling that you guys had hoped for, right?
Yes, it is, and thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. We're in Seattle, and we have a big Pride weekend coming up, and the place is already alive with festive activities.
Yes, I was actually in Seattle last year for Pride, so this is going to definitely be an exciting weekend to celebrate.
So the Supreme Court always rules in a way that you have to sort of look into the ruling to see what it means and what it doesn't mean. Would you agree with that summary that I just read from the New York Times, and would you take that any further?
Yeah, I do agree with that summary, and I think the only thing that I would add is that we believe that this is a major step forward, for equality for everyone, and especially being someone that grew up in California and who now lives in D.C. It was exciting and to know that when I am single, by the way, but when I do find someone that I want to marry, that I actually will have that choice and option to do so, and legally.
You'd probably go home to California, you think? Because we got some great venues up here in Washington that are doing that these days.
Yeah, I imagine going back home to California to get married, but who knows where it'll take me.
Right. It seems to me that when change happens, it happens really fast. I mean, we have back in my childhood, we could look back at a year when segregation was the law, when buses and schools and bathrooms even, coloreds and whites were separate, and that was the rule. And then when it kind of, when it all fell apart, now here we are 30 years later trying to decide if some lady can still keep her job at the Food Network because she said something 30 years ago. So is there, and there's a backlash sometimes to things that happen. Do you think we will need to, do you think this will all continue very fast? Do you think that all of the other states will legalize gay marriage? Or do you think that there'll be certain sections of the country that'll be a little slower to come around?
I always believed that marriage equality was going to be inevitable. I feel like this is definitely continuing to build on the momentum. A majority of voters and a majority of Americans believe that marriage equality should be the rule of the land, the law of the land. But I also believe that it's going to that this is a process for people. And while I hope that in the next couple of months that it'll all change really fast, that there's still work that needs to be done. And while that is the case, I think this is an important time to celebrate and to recognize the progress that has been made.
Now, all right, so DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act, that's about benefits, and that's about the federal government giving you the same treatment you get in your own state, right?
Correct.
And what's the best part about it to you?
The best part about it is that there are basically hundreds of benefits that couples straight couples that they've been able to be afforded that for the longest time same-sex couples haven't been able to. And I think for me that's a really big deal. Visitation rights in the hospital, other things like that. I also think that it also speaks to what a broader LGBT equality agenda can look like. I think marriage equality has definitely paved way for us to look at employment non-discrimination, to look at addressing LGBT youth issues and broader LGBT equality issues. And I'm looking forward to what that will continue to bring.
Cool. All right, Gregory. Now, this may be a weird question. I mean, I have people on all sides of every argument that are my friends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have friends who, I consider maybe to be a little bit backwards, who maybe their neck gets a lot of sun, the kind I'm talking about. And do you have any friends like that? I mean, do you have any friends who are going to be upset by this that you have to talk to, or do you just not have anybody in your circles like that?
The reality is I actually have to have this conversation with my family. All the time I go home. I mean,
so you got a dad who's like a huge Rush Limbaugh fan and Glenn Beck fan, and you got to deal with that?
I don't know if my dad is a Rush Limbaugh or a fan, but me coming out to him was definitely a challenge.
Uh-huh.
It was hard for him to take, and I think it still sometimes makes him feel uncomfortable when I talk about maybe guys that I'm dating or who I think are attractive. And I think one thing that has really helped with that is just even personalizing the story. I know for many people, they're knowing someone that's close, especially a family member who's actually out and LGBT, I think adds another layer of personalization. Because before I came out, particularly my parents would be like, well, they, them, kind of speaking about this kind of elusive group of people. And when they realized I was them or I was one of them, it really changed the dynamic. And so I think this has also encouraged me to share my story and share my experiences with more people.
And they would say... They would say that it's not normal. That's what my friends typically say, that it's not normal.
Well, it's not normal to
be gay, yeah.
I find that there's many gay people who are very unique, and I think it's something that we have to just continue to share. And there are many people who I know who aren't out because they're worried about what their friends and family are going to say, and I think this gives even more reason for more people to share their stories and express who they are and do so freely.
When you find that special someone, Greg, you said you're single, but someday you hope to go back to California and have a ceremony and have a family and everything. Do you think your dad will be there to walk you down the aisle? Will he participate in something like that?
My dad has come a long way. My mom has come a long way. My entire family has come a long way. And I believe, at the heart of hearts, especially coming from an immigrant Filipino family, that, while it might be difficult, that my parents and all of my family will be there if and when it happens.
All right, Gregory, thanks for taking a moment. Congratulations. Good day.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.